New power, new values. Egon Zehnder met acclaimed novelist Taiye Selasi and movement entrepreneur Jeremy Heimans in London's Chinatown to explore the aspirations of young global change leaders.
I would say a community is a group of people that tells itself the same story. Whatever that story may be and whatever its base is, I think that is what a community is. And what I think we are finding as time moves on is that the state, which used to be, I think, the assumed go-to institution for the creation of communities, England, France, Germany, Nigeria, Ghana, Australia, etc., is sort of losing its hold in that regard, and different stories other than the story of the state, stories other than the story of national identity are taking over, I think, the ways in which human beings understand who they are and who they are in common with other people. So communities, I think, we are common storytellers.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, you both are kind of storytellers.
Oh, I would say so.
Yeah, that's true. She's more elegant in her storytelling.
It's just there.
To your point, this sort of shared worldview is a lot of the glue of community. So people can come from very different backgrounds. But if I think about the communities that I've been building for the work that I do, what unifies them is not we're all environmentalists or we all believe in we all oppose the war in Iraq. But it really is a worldview, right? And people have very different worldviews.
What's important for me is not to label people, because it's funny, Afropolitan has become a label, but that wasn't my intention. I was describing an experience, not an individual. I was describing an experience that I knew very well, having lived it, that I believed others shared, and that I suspected gave rise and continues to give rise to a certain way of looking at things. This is why I love what you say about a worldview. And it's that way of looking at things that I think leads naturally to the instinct to affect change for other people. Let's remember that it's not just the view that has changed, but literally the world. I mean, what we were working with, even, I'm part of a very funny border generation who graduated from high school without email and college without a cell phone. And this is still miraculous to me that there are people like me who in my short lifetime have seen a radical change in not just the way things are done, but in the amount of information that I receive. But the world itself is available to me in a way that it wasn't before. So we have to expect that people who see more of the world will see the world differently. And that because that is constantly shifting.
The thing about young people is today, whether they're in Nigeria or in, or in New York, if they're connected, is they have this expectation of participating. There's so much banality in the discussion about the disruptions and changes that we all feel are happening. And that banality usually centers on the explanation or the sort of term is social media that is used to explain everything that's changing in the world. Oh, the Egyptian revolution, oh, that's social media. President Obama being like, oh, that's social media, and then that's just not true. And so we wanted to create a language and a framework that explained what was really going on.
Right, accurately.
Accurately. And what's common about a Beppe Grillo, who, almost, who claims a huge share of the vote in national elections despite having no formal political apparatus, and a vase, and an Airbnb, is actually that these are all networks enabled by, mass participation and by coordination among peers. And that is the enabling element that makes them viable, scalable, disruptive to these old power institutions. And that comes along to our discussion about worldviews and values with a set of values and with certain characteristics in terms of models that these appear in that are really quite common across politics and business and culture. New power is essentially constituted of models and values that create new sources of power, create outcomes, create social change by using mass participation and peer coordination.
I would be interested in which way is that important to whatever organization we are talking about, be it in business, be it an NGO? How does that come into play, and how do leaders of these organizations have to take that into account?
That's a good question.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think if you take the question of values seriously, it means that you can't, to your point, just tinker with your model. So, we have this expression that the people at Davos didn't actually understand when I gave it. I think a few people did. the digital beard, which is an organization that has their digital kind of front, but they're sort of somewhere, in a corner in a dark room somewhere, and the real business is being done elsewhere. And it's a digital sort of shell on top of a very old power model and on top of very old power values. So, obviously you need leaders with these values, and they have to just actually really get that that there's inherent virtue in the participation. I find in my work that there's a risk of appropriation of the language by people who actually don't really have any purpose.
Part of what creates this cosmopolitanism that we so love and can't pronounce is money, is trade, is profit. And in order to insert purpose and meaning and value and humanity into that model, I think it takes, it's an act of will. I really commend you for doing it, but it also, I think, requires that we never let anyone start playing Kumbaya softly in the background, that we remain really clear that these are brass tacks too.